impossible, next to impossible. And the payment that takes place is through bitcoins, where there is no bank statement or the transaction ID or unique transaction ID which can reflect into a bank or onto your mobile phone, which can have some traceability or trackability.
The NCB busted a big cartel related to black cocaine in Goa during Christmas last year. Now, they've added 2 dogs to their team to ensure timely detection.
We had information that some passengers are bringing some cocaine or some contraband from Latin American countries. So we put a surveillance and we come across some suspicious individuals. Among that, one lady we zeroed it down. And after questioning her, we found some suspicious black colored substance into her bag. So the substance was new to us. When we examined that carefully, we found that it was not, the sniffers were not able to sniff it, and it was not visible in the scanning also. Then we got more suspicious. We found later on, she confessed that is a black cocaine.
But experts say such drugs can easily evade these authorities.
If you bring this cocaine in a proper form, so it can be detected. But they have taken another route and they have make the mixtures with the pure cocaine, with the charcoal, with the cobalt salt, with the iron salt, and they mix accordingly and they prepare the color of this original cocaine is white. And if you mix with this charcoal and all that, it becomes black. And it is very difficult for the sniffer dogs to find it out.
Some of these designer drugs have been around in countries like the US for more than a decade. But the trend is only catching on in India now.
CNN News 18's Yasha Kotak, who got us this exclusive report on black cocaine, is joining us. Yasha, can you give us more details about black cocaine and how it is being smuggled?
So like we rightly understood from the story, that black cocaine in fact is a component wherein the chemical substance are changed. So basically, while the cocaine is white, the chemical component is changed so that once the chemical component is changed, it cannot be detected in scanners. Apart from that, because of the chemical component is changed, the smell for this particular product also changes, which is where we see that the sniffer dogs also cannot really sniff it, did not get the smell of it, which is why it becomes easy to smuggle this. Now, this is being smuggled from Latin American countries, but apart from that, from Africa as well. And right now, what we see is from NCB, we've understood that there is a unique modus operandi, particularly for this, so that it goes undetected. What is being done is that female peddlers are being used. Female peddlers, in fact, are using the code of sanitary napkin when someone wants to purchase it, and which is where we see that in this case, because females are being used, the code word is sanitary napkin, and the whole component is changed. Because the component is changed, there's no detection, which makes it easier for peddlers to smuggle this. Now, the main route that is being used to smuggle this is ideally the air route or the sea route. It's not ideally be coming in from the land route. Through air route, it's easier because what we see is that mostly the cities which are under the scanner include Goa and Mumbai. Particularly during the festival season is where we see that this particular duck is quite in demand. It's an expensive duck also, because what we see is that for 1 gram, the rate is approximately anywhere between 28,000 to 30,000. So which is where
Do you remember the events that defined us in the last 50 weeks?
Wow, 50 weeks. We saw power shifts.
There were triumphs.
We weathered storms.
The very earth shook right under our feet.
We saw new worlds.
And the birth of a new intelligence.
But we never let our
eye waver.
We brought you the news that mattered.
Your trust has made us
India's #1 news channel
for 50
straight weeks.
And we're only getting started.
CNN News 18.
Sensible,
credible,
always.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin this edition of The Right Stand with a call to all of us as citizens of this country to take the right stand. Take the right stand in the fight against drugs, the fight against narcotics, the fight against perhaps the biggest bane that is going to totally destroy the present generation and, of course, our future. And tonight, we bring you a mega CNN News 18 exclusive here on The Right Stand. It all started when a Bolivian woman was stopped by the NCB, or the Narcotics Control Bureau, in Mumbai in September last year with at least 3.2 kilograms of high-grade black cocaine worth 13 crore rupees. Now, according to reports, her suitcase was thoroughly searched. They reportedly discovered phony cavities and seized 12 items that were very carefully wrapped, and they contained the black substance. The Drug Enforcement Agency also stated that it is very uncommon to find black cocaine. So what is this designer rare drug that was found? Drug peddlers, drug mafia are getting increasingly innovative and ingenious, ladies and gentlemen. What is black cocaine? Black cocaine is the mixture of a regular cocaine base with various additives. It's mixed with coal or cobalt. Black cocaine is made by mixing cocaine with coal, cobalt, and activated carbon and iron and salt. So cocaine is white in color, and this additional substance turns it into black. It is trafficked then as a fertilizer or fingerprint powder or pigment and charcoal, among other things, because that's what it looks like. Interestingly, black cocaine can't be used as is. So the traffickers then have to conduct reverse treatments, chemical treatments, to separate the cocaine once again from the chemicals that have been imbued into it. But more interestingly, ladies and gentlemen, black cocaine is difficult to sniff because they add additives to mask the smell, and you cannot catch it. It escapes scanners. It escapes the traditional current prevalent markers and also the training implemented to sniffer dogs. The black cocaine challenge. This substance looks different and it has no smell. Officials say that even sniffer dogs can fail to detect black cocaine. You can carry it in your pocket and just walk right through and none will be the wiser. Detection is also difficult, and its black color makes it easier for smugglers to conceal it and take it past checkpoints. It can dodge color-based drug tests too. A new strategy that's now been designed by the cocaine cartel to make inroads into India. This is after the recent seizures. Now, from about 300 odd kgs in 2022 to nearly 800 odd kilograms in the last year, so 21-22 to 22-23, that's the level of seizure that's happened. And that means the cartels also have to get wiser and they have to get smarter to enter the Indian market. The black cocaine cartel is being run by women so that they don't get caught. There are passwords that are used. This is largely smuggled from regions like South Africa and also certain parts of Latin America. Now, this is as per report. Black cocaine is also sold on Telegram, on Instagram, and officials are saying the supplies are paid in cryptocurrency, largely Bitcoin, and this all transactions happen quite a bit on the Darknet. So cryptocurrency used to avoid traces of transactions, Bitcoin especially. The code word used for transactions related to black cocaine is sanitary napkin. Now, the value of black cocaine in the Indian market is anywhere close to 28,000 to 30,000 rupees per gram. Now, they are usually quite a lot in demand in Mumbai, Goa, Hyderabad, Chennai and Bangalore. I have to tell you again that black cocaine is smuggled into the country, then it has to be separated. It can't be consumed as is. But there are other designer drugs too, which are increasingly becoming a threat, and they're also being consumed in combination, which adds to the entire drug menace. Before we go across to two very senior voices who have committed their life towards the crackdown and this fight against narcotics, let's go across to Yesha Kotak, who's got us this story. She's joining us from Mumbai. Yesha, take us through the details. Does it stop only with black cocaine, or are there other forms of this drug, and are there other designer drugs too?
So in fact, what we understand, in fact, the sources have said that black cocaine is just the first designer drug to have entered the Indian market. When you speak about markets such as US and other countries, it has been there for around 2 decades already. But black cocaine is just the first designer drug in the cocaine category to have entered market. In fact, as a part of our investigation, when we checked the Darknet, there were yellow as well as pink cocaine that were available. So when we speak about cocaine, here there is a variety of designer drugs that are being manufactured when it comes to cocaine. But apart from that, imported ganjas, apart from that Hydro Ganja, these are some of the various designer drugs which are now in market. So let's understand the kind of audience that these designer drugs cater to. Like we've said, it's an expensive drug, anywhere between 28,000 to 30,000 per gram, which means it caters to a market which is a high market, and which is where we see that most of these cartels are busted around the festival season. In fact, the biggest cartel that was busted by NCB later in December 2022, this was around the Christmas time, and this particular cartel was operating out of Goa. Right. There were females who had bought in this black cocaine from Latin American countries to Mumbai, and which is why we see that the demand is higher in countries which are metropolitan cities, which clearly means Mumbai, Bangalore are among the places which are hub for these for black cocaine. And the modus operandi is such that because it's a larger cartel, it is not easily sold to peddlers. Peddlers, we understand, sell drugs which are in a lower range, but this, because it's a high range drug, which is where we see the use of Darknet. Apart from that, Instagram groups, there are in fact Instagram groups which cater particularly to ensure that they reach out to their customers, and there are Telegram groups also which are formed in order to ensure that there's a delivery. Now, when we speak about Darknet, to which these cartels operate, or to which black cocaine is in fact sold to people, it is like any other online platform, any other online website to which you make purchases. But it's just that to Darknet, there is no transaction details that can be easily sought. Apart from that, Bitcoin transaction or cryptocurrency transactions, they cannot be easily bought by the central agencies, or for that matter, state agencies. They would need to investigate, and that kind of an upgrade is required, particularly from the part of those investigating this case. Which is why for peddlers who are into high-end drugs, or for that matter, peddlers who are in fact ensuring that these kind of designer drugs are brought into Indian market, they opt for platforms such as Darknet. Yes.
Right. Yesha, phenomenal job done. We've got the experts also coming in, so I have to thank you and also say that continue this job. The Maharashtra Police, the Narcotics Control Bureau, the law enforcement, they're all doing phenomenal work. This is just, they'll just get increasingly ingenious, ladies and gentlemen, but we need to be watchful and we need to be aware. Let's go across to B.V. Kumarji, former NCB chief, and also Dr. G. Srikumar Menon, counter-narcotics specialist, who should be joining us any moment now. But first to B.V. Kumarji, namaste and Jai Hind. Thank you, sir, for speaking with us. Your thoughts on our investigation and this report that we put here on News 18 about the issue of designer drugs. Now, there has been a huge consignment that's been caught in Mumbai, but that brings to the fore the ingenuity of these drug cartels. Black cocaine, pink cocaine, Hydro Ganja, yellow cocaine. Your thoughts?
Yeah, now if you see the last 3-4 months, a series of small consignments are coming to Bombay and are being intercepted both by the DRI as well as the Mumbai airport authorities, so also the NCB. And earlier, during the period, if you see, what has happened is earlier African nationals from African countries, particularly Nigeria, Zambia and other places, they were coming. Right. Now, since that became a familiar pattern, the enforcement authorities have become alert of the source from which the drugs have been transiting to India. Now, what's happening is from Colombia, it comes to one of the countries, then comes to Dubai ultimately, before coming to Dubai, it comes to an African country, comes to Dubai, and then probably one of these African nationals have been giving. So this has become a familiar route. Now they change their modus operandi and bringing through passengers coming from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Right.
The last 3-4 seizures are from both Indian nationals as well as African nationals coming or traveling from Addis Ababa. So that has been a trend. But what is worrying is the quantities, though small, are coming like mules. These are the passengers who are regularly bringing these consignments at different ports, changing from, say, Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, or even Calcutta and other places. That is what is happening. During COVID, since the airport travel was very restricted, they used to bring by ships large consignments and other things. Now the trend has changed, and since the airports are freely available, people are able to travel and other things without any restrictions for COVID. Now they are bringing through these passengers. That is what is happening. But what is important is for the DRA as well as the NCB is, it's not enough if we just make the seizure at the airport. We should allow the passenger to move across into the town, then follow up and find out to whom they're exactly delivering. NCB has done in one case. They apprehended in February one African woman who was caught, and then she clearly mentioned, I have to go to a particular place and deliver to another lady. So they allowed this lady to come and waited at the place incognito, and they were able to apprehend another African woman who, she conceded and admitted that she was to receive the consignment. I'm sure they must have followed up to find out for whom she was working. So that is the system that has to be traveled. Now, what is worrying is Australia is emerging as a major country of consumption and also transit to India. Earlier in Bombay, we had major consignments which came from Australia. And today I was surprised to read the latest report of the International Narcotics Control Bureau on cocaine, found out that Australia is almost becoming a competing nation with USA in terms of consumption. That's a very dangerous trend, particularly for us in India, because we have a lot of communication with Australia, both in terms of trade, in terms of people studying there, and other relations for tourism. They are trying to promote tourism also. So that being the case, we have to be extremely alert of any passenger or any consignments coming from Australia. So that is very important.
Right. But Bivi Kumarji, the other challenge for us and also the law enforcement and the sleuths is how do we catch these cartels who are increasingly becoming ingenious and also innovative. They mix it with alcohol, try to smuggle it in. They try to do it with talc earlier. Now it's coal. They are masking the smell also, so the sniffer dogs can't also sniff it out. How do we prep for something like this?
Look, the demand is indicated by one or two things. For example, the price last year was 5,000, now it has become 8,000. The quantity which was seized last year was 310, now it has become 817 kgs, according to the NCB figures and other things. But what disturbs me is not to sort of prevent the smell or anything like that, but people trying to enjoy cocaine with other drugs, for example, combine it with ecstasy, combine it with methamphetamine and others to get probably a higher kick and probably at a shorter time and other things. So that is a dangerous trend. So that is one thing that is happening, and now the holiday season coming and other things, and the students and the children or the youths having holidays and other things. Now we have to be extremely alert to find out whether the incoming consignments will increase and other things. That's what we have to be extremely careful.
But let me ask you this. How do we catch? You said we need to get to the bottom of it. We also need to ensure that we track the people, the entire route and the conduit. But how difficult is to get rid of cocaine addiction?
Addiction, cocaine is a very difficult drug to de-addict persons under cocaine, because people who are addicted to cocaine, they will not be able to perform any particular responsibility unless they take cocaine either in the form of injection or snorting or even combining it to alcohol and taking and other things. See, in USA, they have found out certain doctors performing surgery are unable to do unless they take an injection of cocaine before they perform the surgery. It enhances your skills at that particular time and for a shorter time and other things. But later on, of course, it's a killer, and ultimately it leads to their deterioration in their health and other things. That is the dangerous part. But it's very difficult in the short term to prevent the addiction in cocaine. Other drugs, they can be, de-addiction process can be put through, for example, in heroin and other things. In cocaine, it becomes very difficult.
BV Kumarji, please stay on with us. G. Sri Kumar is also with us. G. Sri Kumar Menonji, namaste. Now, black cocaine, pink cocaine, designer drugs. How big a challenge is this going to be very soon?
Anand, if you see the latest UNODC report 2023, Nigeria tops the world in cocaine trafficking. And we need not be surprised that some of it is coming into India because we have a population of 10,000 Nigerians here. And these people, the moment they land in India, the problem is they destroy all their travel documents.
Right.
And another problem is, I think you will recall, BV Kumar sir will also recall, a few years back, there was a big problem in Goa. And what happened was the entire Goan population wanted the Nigerians to be kicked out. And one minister, unfortunately in public, he told that all these Nigerians should be kicked out. The immediate reaction was that a Nigerian minister told, we are also having Indians here. There are 65,000 Indians in Nigeria.
Correct.
Second generation, third generation. So, I mean, it was a veiled warning to us that if we do something to them, they are going to retaliate.
Right.
So this is a very complicated scenario where we are unable to do anything to these people. And most of them, even, very elderly people are coming on student visas. Because, our universities have left it open for them to come.
Right.
And if you see all the metro cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, see, this is where, and Punjab also, this is where the cocaine consumption is very high. Because you have a state-wise profile, you can have. Like, for example, in Kerala, you don't find much of cocaine. There it is more of ecstasy. In some states, it is heroin. Some states, it is MD, it is yaba. So this problem is there, and cocaine coming because it is very expensive. And it is called as the king's habit. So ordinary people can't afford cocaine. It is going to the elite level of people.
Right.
And as you know very well that most of the film stars and models are into abusing cocaine. And in this particular case, which has been detected in Bombay, one of the persons has come from Hyderabad. So obviously this consignment was meant for Hyderabad, and Hyderabad is a known location for cocaine consumption, especially by the film world. So this is how it is, Anand. Very complicated scenario.
No, it is a complicated scenario, but I see, one is there is demand, so that's why there is supply. But is it enough only to stop the supply, and how can we stop the supply if they are becoming so ingenious? That's the larger question, because they are getting very innovative and they see India as a very fertile market. It's a sad statement, but true.
See, our agencies are doing a wonderful job. In fact, every agency, in fact, in this particular case, I should say we should compliment the DRI, because it was not only the carrier who was caught, even 2 or 3 other leaders have been apprehended. So now, from further interrogation, we'll have to find out who were the people. See, it is 20 crores.
Yes.
And 20 crores is not a small sum of money. I mean, so somebody financing 20, and this is just only one consignment.
Correct.
Like this way, so many consignments would have come into the country, or it is coming. So who is financing all these things? Now, even if you recall that Mundra seizure, 3,000 crores
is something
mind-boggling. Even your state government does not have budgets of that magnitude.
Right.
So who is behind this is something, a very big challenge. It is not that easy. And as you know, Anand, see, all our agencies are working with skeleton force. Whether it is DRI, whether it is NIA or NCB, all of them are working with a skeleton force. And unfortunate trend is, whenever there is a case detected, all these agencies are coming into the picture.
Yeah.
Including ED also, including ED. Now the problem is, either you have in place a multidisciplinary agency to investigate. Now what happens, suddenly DRI comes in, they do part of it, then it's handed over to NIA, then it goes to ED. Now what happens, ultimately nothing happens.
Correct.
By the time, all these people, they get sufficient time to cover up their tracks.
And to
they get the
also
best of
change
lawyers.
their entire modus operandi or reinvent themselves and repackage themselves and come back. So you are saying we need to have a multidisciplinary. We need to have a multidisciplinary task force. So then the crackdown is comprehensive and everybody from every department is there. So there is no bureaucracy or red tape that delays the crackdown and eradicating the network. My final question, I have limited time. So BV Kumarji, this women being used and they being part not just as couriers but also part of the entire network, and code words like sanitary napkin, this also has come to the fore. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, that's a very common thing. Not now. From the good old days, the Hawala dealers, Hawala racketeers particularly used to use code. For example, the word inspector. Now, that's a 9 digits, 9 alphabets which doesn't repeat itself. For example, it is IN, it means 10, and any other alphabet is a 0. So if it is 10,000, then you have to put IN and 3 zeros. Like that, they had a code system long back. It's nothing new. They used to, even in Tamil couplets, they used to have a code. So they are very ingenious compared to what we can imagine.
What we can imagine. G. Shri Kumar Menon, women being involved, quick word.
Sir, women are very commonly used. Even children are used by women. Now you see in Kerala, young girls as young as 9 years and 10 years are being used for trafficking. The latest case in Kerala, which is now creating such a big sensation, is that a 10-year-old girl, she has been addicted so much and she has been used as a trafficker. And like this way, there are many other young girls.
Right.
So this is a very common modus operandi, as B.V. Kumar sir said.
Right.
I mean, employing girls has been very because we have a soft corner for girls and we don't try to subject them to as much of detailed scrutiny as we do for men.
Correct.
So that is being exploited. And
well, so we have to wake up to this reality, and this suggestion of a multidisciplinary task force to crack down on this narcotics menace is a very, very apt one perhaps, and let's hope there is some thinking or work in that direction. G. Shri Kumar Menon and also BV Kumarji, thank you very, very much for your time. Thank you. More details on this investigation on news18.com. Do go across to our platform to read the entire copy and the details. We'll move on here on the right stand. A massive showdown in Bengal over midday meals. A panel appointed by the Ministry of Education has found that the local administration in West Bengal is over-reporting the serving of around 16 crore midday meals worth over 100 crore from April to September last year. The Education Ministry in January constituted the Joint Review Mission to review the implementation of centrally sponsored scheme PM Poshan in West Bengal following complaints of irregularities. So what did the government-appointed panel find? This is what the report says. The report says that serving of around 16 crore midday meals worth over 100 crore were over-reported by the local administration in Bengal. The over-reporting was done from April 2022 to September 2022 last year. The panel noted serious discrepancies in information submitted regarding the number of meals served at various levels. The panel also questioned the diversion of funds meant for the scheme to pay compensation to fire victims, misallocation of food grains, cooking of rice, dal and vegetables up to 70% less than the prescribed quantities. The government panel also questioned the usage of expired packets of condiments. Now, what the government has come out and said, now according to the first and second quarterly progress report submitted to the Government of India by the state government, about 140.25 crore meals had been served. The panel has said that the number of meals served was 124.22 crore. However, as per the QPR submitted by the districts to the state, the number of meals served was about 124.22 crore. Now, what the government said, over 95% kids availed meals on average basis. The panel finds 60 to 85% children availed the midday meal. So this is what they have also found. Then, during this period, now while the BJP claims corruption is endemic in the Mamata Banerjee government, the Trinamool Congress hitting back saying that the report is politically motivated and that the state government representatives were kept in the dark about it. Priyanka Tibrawal, Bengal BJP spokesperson, is with us along with Riju Datta, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress. Namaste and Jai Hind to the lady and the gentleman. Your first reaction to this report, Priyanka Tibrawal.
See, we are all aware that what kind of scams and corruption is happening in West Bengal, and there is no department which the state government is leaving unturned when it is a question of corruption, because corruption here prevails from top to bottom. Now that the TMC and the government here, they are saying that, this is a joint report, although we were not even allowed to participate. And we have all seen that when it is a question of federalism, what is the response that we get from TMC? When the center is continuously asking them to give accounts of the funds which were given to TMC, 90% of the funds, they have no account to it. And they are screaming and yelling and saying that we have not been given the funds. That is only the 10%, which accordingly, until and unless you submit the accounts, you don't get the 10% fund. So this was regarding the funding. Now, the same continues in one more department, where you see the ex-minister of education is in the jail on charges of corruption. And this we see that when the teams went to ride to the ground, what did they find? That the food served to the children was not adequate. There were snakes and lizards in the food. They were supposed to get eggs, forget the chicken. That was also not adequate enough for the children at the school. Moreover, now we see that servings of 1600 crore midday meal worth over rupees 100 crores. That is the ghotala. And now they are complaining and saying that it is only to give us bad names. Sir, one can only malign you if you are clean or pure. You from top to bottom are corrupt. What will anyone try and malign you?
Riju Datta, please respond.
Thank you. See, BJP, like their true self and their DNA, has abused the federal structure again. It is BJP who have peddled their lies because of cheap politics. They have put it on a piece of paper and printed it as a report. The CAG, now I'll give you facts and figures. The CAG report of 2021-2022, which is completed and published, never reported any discrepancy. The 13th JRM happened in January 2023, where there is a state representation, the project director of cooked midday meal scheme. His signature is not even on that report. He was not even involved in this report. So BJP, because they cannot defeat us politically or democratically, is peddling lies through reports now. Now let me give you more facts and figures. The West Bengal government has introduced chicken and seasonal fruits in the midday meal, which is costing the state exchequer additional 370 crores and at an extra cost of 20 rupees per children. Let me ask the BJP, what are they paying per midday meal per children for the country? It is less than 15 rupees. Now they are giving big dialogues here. Now I will also categorically give you one more fact, that 14 out of 19 BJP ruled states do not even include a single boiled egg in the midday meal for little children. And they are giving us dialogues and talking of corruption before even BJP Bengal opens their mouth. Priyanka Tibrewal is a lawyer and I respect her. Let me please finish.
Give him another 30 seconds, Priyanka ji. Give him allow him another 30 seconds. Let him complete and then you rebut.
Yes, it is taxpayers' money. It is not BJP's paternal property or not even Modi ji's paternal property. And when you talk about corruption, Mr. Everyone, you are a lawyer. I respect you. But your boss, Subendu Adhikari, the leader of opposition, is a corrupt man mentioned in the ED-CBI charge sheet, and he is involved in 10 different scams. So please do not lecture us on corruption.
Right. Priyanka ji, respond.
Now, yeah. So whatever masters and misses are present in his party, we have all seen half of them are now sitting in jail and time for the rest to go. Now, sir, you see that they are talking so much about our money. It is nobody's hard-earned money. It is the taxpayers' hard-earned money. The 40% which the state is giving is not giving from their pocket. It is the hard-earned money of the taxpayers.
And the 60% money you are giving is not from the 60%,
which is also.
Abhi aap interrupt mat karo na, Riju ji. You also extend the courtesy, please.
60% money given by the center under the PM Poshan Yojana also belongs to the taxpayers. That is why in a federal structure, it is the right of the center to find out whether that hard-earned money is being utilized properly or not. So the question here is not that whether it is the state's money which is being misutilized. Of course, we will question, because that money is also taxpayers' money. So now the TMC wants that we are eating 40% of our money and you are nobody to question us. That cannot be the thing.
Right. Riju Datta, respond.
You need to respond to the money. You need to respond to the scams and corruption.
Thank you. Now, all national channels has done multiple debates on the apparent scam in West Bengal on the Awas Yojana. The central team came and they filed a report. What did they say? No discrepancy. 100 days work, Manrega, which is an act. The center
where is he talking from? Where is he talking from? No discrepancy.
Okay.
What is the report? Where is he talking from?
The report, your central government report. Go and do your homework.
TV पर he can't lie. What is he
Go
saying?
and do your homework.
There have been number
Go
of
and do
lists.
your homework.
There have been number of lists.
There is no discrepancy. Why are you
Netas were found guilty of doing corruption. Why
is freelancing
those who had their own houses, they made Awas under the Awas Yojana scheme.
I have to.
They took the lands.
I have
What
to.
is he
I have
talking?
to.
No discrepancy.
I have only one humble submission.
All over in Bengal.
I have only one humble submission. There can be cut money, there can be corruption, there can be kickbacks, there can be cut-offs, everything. In this case, to the BJP and to the Trinamool, to Riju Datta and to Priyanka Tibrawal, this is midday meals for the children of our country, children in our schools, children who are coming, who we want to give them the meals so that they stay back in school, so that they study. If there is corruption in this, Riju Datta, the Trinamool Congress should go after anybody who is involved in corruption in this. Go after them because they are playing with the future of our country, future of our state, future of our country, and they should not be allowed. If there is some. On that note, I thank you, Priyanka Tibrawal and Riju Datta, for joining us here on The Right Stand. Thank you very, very much. Quickly moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to Delhi, the liquor scam and the hearing in the courts. The Enforcement Directorate kept its point of view today in the court. There is no relief for Manish Sisodia in this excise policy scam. The bail plea of former Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, Manish Sisodia, was rejected by the Rouse House Court, and the court has set the 18th of April to hear the rebuttal arguments to be made by Sisodia's lawyer. During the hearing today, the Enforcement Directorate levelled sensational charges against Manish Sisodia. The ED said they have evidence that Sisodia had emails planted. These have been received not only in the official email account of the Excise Department, but even in his personal email account. The content of the emails was given by Manish Sisodia, which suited his agenda. ED went on to say that fabricated emails were sent to show that there was a public approval of the policy and illegal ecosystem was created to give benefits to liquor cartels in lieu of kickbacks. As Sisodia sought bail on humanitarian grounds, the ED said while Sisodia was holding 18 portfolios and was out on election campaigns, there were other people attending to his wife, and that humanitarian grounds can't be used to skip the probe. This is what was said in the courts today. The rest, we will get you details on the 18th of April. But till then, no relief, no bail for Manish Sisodia. Moving on to another exclusive here on The Right Stand. A 6-year-old Hindu girl was abducted and raped in the Tadolhar region in Pakistan's province of Sindh. The girl was playing outside her home in Sheikh Birkyo in the Tadolhar region when she was abducted by 2 people on Friday. The girl was later found 6 kilometers from her home, lying unconscious and seriously injured in a field. This victim is currently under treatment at a local government hospital. The father of this girl said that the police were uncooperative and they didn't even register their complaint against the 2 accused, Ismail and Muhammad. This is not the first instance of brutality against minorities in Pakistan. Not just minorities, these are children, ladies and gentlemen. Violence against the Hindu minority, not new in this country, in Pakistan, where there are frequent cases of abduction and religious conversion of girls from the minority community. And this largely is happening in the Sindh and the Punjab provinces. These details stand out, shocking details, and this comes just a day after India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman very clearly pointed towards the poor record of treatment of minorities in Pakistan. We're going to take a very, very short break, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we turn the spotlight on the crackdown on grooming gangs in the United Kingdom. The fact that majority of the accused are of British Pakistani origin, revealed by the man who investigated them, Charlie Peters, live and exclusive on The Right Stand.
black cocaine in Goa during Christmas last year. Now, they've added 2 dogs to their team to ensure timely detection.
We had information that some passengers are bringing some cocaine or some contraband from Latin American countries. So we put a surveillance and we come across some suspicious individuals. Among that, one lady we zeroed it down. And after questioning her, we found some suspicious black colored substance into her bag. So the substance was new to us. When we examined that carefully, we found that it was not, the sniffers were not able to sniff it, and it was not visible in the scanning also. Then we got more suspicious. We found later on, she confessed that is a black cocaine.
But experts say such drugs can easily evade these authorities.
If you bring this cocaine in a proper form, so it can be detected. But they have taken another route and they have make the mixtures with the pure cocaine, with the charcoal, with the cobalt salt, with the iron salt, and they mix accordingly and they prepare the color of this original cocaine is white. And if you mix with this charcoal and all that, it becomes black. And it is very difficult for the sniffer dogs to find it out.
Some of these designer drugs have been around in countries like the US for more than a decade. But the trend is only catching on in India now.
CNN News 18's Yasha Kotak, who got us this exclusive report on black cocaine, is joining us. Yasha, can you give us more details about black cocaine and how it is being smuggled?
So like we rightly understood from the story, that black cocaine in fact is a component wherein the chemical substance are changed. So basically, while the cocaine is white, the chemical component is changed so that once the chemical component is changed, it cannot be detected in scanners. Apart from that, because of the chemical component is changed, the smell for this particular product also changes, which is where we see that the sniffer dogs also cannot really sniff it, did not get the smell of it, which is why it becomes easy to smuggle this. Now, this is being smuggled from Latin American countries, but apart from that, from Africa as well. And right now, what we see is from NCB, we've understood that there is a unique modus operandi, particularly for this, so that it goes undetected. What is being done is that female peddlers are being used. Female peddlers, in fact, are using the code of sanitary napkin when someone wants to purchase it, and which is why we see that in this case, because females are being used, the code word is sanitary napkin, and the whole component is changed. Because the component is changed, there's no detection, which makes it easier for peddlers to smuggle this. Now, the main route that is being used to smuggle this is ideally the air route or the sea route. It's not ideally coming in from the land route. Through air route, it's easier because what we see is that mostly the cities which are under the scanner include Goa and Mumbai. Particularly in the festival season is where we see that this particular drug is quite in demand. It's an expensive drug also, because what we see is that for 1 gram, the rate is approximately anywhere between 28,000 to 30,000. So which is where, because it's an expensive drug, it's ideally used in parties in some of the big cities.
Now, in a major crackdown, the Narcotics Control Bureau has seized more than 3 kgs of black cocaine valued at 13 crores at the Mumbai International Airport. But what's making it difficult for the agencies is the fact that these drugs are being sold on the Darknet. CNN News 18's Yasha Kotak brings us this exclusive report for more about the threat of black cocaine. Take a look.
Black cocaine is the latest designer drug in the market. The Narcotics Control Bureau seized more than 3 kg of black cocaine valued at 13 crores. But what's making it difficult for agencies is the fact that these drugs are being sold on the dark net. Drug traffickers mix cocaine with coal, cobalt and activated carbon to make black cocaine. The black cocaine cartel is being run by women, and the code word used for transactions is sanitary napkin. They're in demand in Mumbai, Goa, Hyderabad, Chennai and Bengaluru, and they largely smuggled from South Africa.
Agencies have now come across a trend wherein some of these drugs, which are a part of the larger drug cartel, are in fact sold online. Some of these which are sold online include hydroponic ganja, imported ganja, ecstasy and designer drugs, which also includes the like of black cocaine. What really do these drug peddlers do with these designer drugs? They change the chemical component of these drugs so that they cannot be bought under the scanner and can be easily smuggled across various platforms, be it the air platform, that is at the airports, or for that matter in ship, where these smuggling activities are in fact on radar by the agencies. Apart from that, when it comes to these designer drugs, they are now in fact also sold on Darknet so that they cannot be bought under the radar of agencies. Some of these platforms now, some of these Darknet platforms as well as drugs are a major challenge for the agencies, and going further could be a new trend in the larger drug market.
Black cocaine is also sold on Telegram and Instagram. Suppliers are paid in Bitcoin on these platforms so as to not leave behind traces of transactions.
The reason being why the people prefer Darknet is that your computer has a unique IP address which can be tracked or traced, and the investigating agencies or law and enforcement agencies can reach you with this IP address. But when you are using the dark web or Darknet for surfing or buying certain things online, your IP address is masked, or so if at all somebody wants to trace you, it's very impossible, next to impossible. And the payment that takes place is through Bitcoins, where there is no bank statement or the transaction ID or unique transaction.
Grooming gangs that expose the dark underbelly of what is happening in the United Kingdom of sexual abuse. This is a gang that was convicted for a series of sexual abuse, and they were convicted for offences against girls in the United Kingdom. But what stands out as part of an investigative effort is that there was clear racial profiling. Largely the accused were of British Pakistani origin, and they targeted white women, young girls. This is the largest gang convicted for sexual abuse in the United Kingdom. Joining us now is Charlie Peters, GB News presenter, and who spent more than a year tracking, investigating and understanding this menace before they put out a documentary and a film, that Grooming Gangs, a British shame, that has taken or captured the imagination of the British people. But first, Charlie, thank you for speaking with us. Let me ask you this. What prompted the British government to take action against these groups?
The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, last summer did, during his leadership campaign, his election campaign to become the new Prime Minister, he did commit as one of his policies that he would launch a renewed focus on the grooming gangs. And it was interesting that he did this because he made these comments during a period of investigation for me when I was researching for my film Grooming Gangs, Britain's Shame. And during that process, I knew that a national crime agency task force was required to deal with this problem. So that was one of the policies that I was very keen on, and it was very exciting to see a senior politician call for them. But also, as part of the film, I also made several other recommendations, and the Prime Minister's announcement last week actually included several more policies, more than the ones that he mentioned last year. And indeed, that includes focusing on ethnicity data from the perpetrators to record who's involved in these crimes, get a better understanding of who's involved in them. That gives you, it allows you to reveal hidden signs of exploitation, and also gets to the heart of the cause of some of the, and the motivations behind some of these perpetrators, why they're engaged in this crime. And also there's been more support for reporting, so more money poured into a whistleblowing helpline, and also a new law called mandatory reporting, so that anyone who works in child safeguarding now has a legal duty that they have to report child abuse where they find it.
Great that these measures have been taken, but Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman have received quite a lot of flack. There is a huge outpouring of sentiment and emotion that is somewhere also pressure on Rishi Sunak and Braverman to retract their statements. How do you see that?
So this is part of the problem we have. I mean, this scandal has been going on for at least 50 years, where we've had predominantly Pakistani British gangs operating throughout the country in mostly post-Victorian depressed northern towns that are struggling with their economy. They have an atomized population, and most of their victims are white working class girls. There have also been many reports of Sikh girls being targeted by these gangs as well. Indeed, that was a big part of the conversation nationally when this scandal first erupted. And a lot of people have found it very difficult to discuss that. Political correctness is rife in Britain in general, but there is no other issue where it is more severe than this one. People do not want to discuss the ethnic, racial, or even the religious motivations behind this crime. People have, in positions of authority, politicians, the media, the police, social services, local councils, they have always prioritized defending multiculturalism or so-called community cohesion over the security, sanctity and defense of these girls. This has been a long-standing problem. And so when people tried to report on this issue in mostly this century, so from 2000 to 2003 onwards, when this started to enter the national conscious, people were always shot down as racist. The Labour MP Anne Cryer in 2003, she raised local concerns about Pakistani men targeting girls outside of school gates. She was derided as a racist and shot down. And it wasn't until a decade later that the journalist Andrew Norfolk at the Times newspaper in London, he wrote a series of really damning reports from speaking to whistleblowers and activists in the town and survivors that really blew the lid off the scandal, and no longer could it be ignored. But of course, Andrew Norfolk came under enormous personal attack for doing this. I mean, I think he's a journalistic legend for doing it, but he came under enormous amounts of abuse, as did so many people who supported him. I mean, so many of the whistleblowers in Rotherham, a town in South Yorkshire where this scandal really was at its core, have been derided as racist and shot down throughout their time in public life. So there has always been this rush to cover this issue in sensitivity, particularly in kind of ethnic and racial sensitivity. Now, that was a decade ago, right? Yeah. A decade ago, there were still some people who were willing to put their head above the parapet and say, yes, we do have a problem with men from the Mirpuri or Kashmiri regions of Pakistan who have a very negative, misogynistic view of women. They believe that, once a girl hits puberty at 11, it's okay for them to be used sexually, which of course it is not. That is rank, that is illegal and immoral and an abomination as far as the native English population is concerned. But also there was an additional issue we had dealing with this problem, which is that there was a growth of kind of clannish attitudes among the people involved in these crimes. Now, a lot of British Pakistanis are quite isolated from the rest of the general population due to the migration patterns in Britain that we had, particularly in England. A lot of people arrived very quickly, and so the ability for the local population to integrate with these people was very low. It didn't happen. And as I'm sure you know, cousin marriage is very common as well within these populations. And if you're marrying within your family, you're unlikely to really generate an open culture. You're unlikely to interact greatly with those around you. And it also means that you're more likely to operate in gangs. Clans breed gangs. And so that's really one of the many causes of this issue. And people don't want to criticize that, especially, I think, and again, this is one of the main problems, Labour politicians who enjoy enormous support from this community in their votes. And I think it's almost certain that this pushes them away from speaking about this issue coherently and honestly.
Well, you talk about a decade ago, Andrew Norfolk, around 2013. That was when Operation Chalice happened and 7 men were jailed at that time. And they, it was a police inquiry into child prosecution and in the Telford area. Then 2014, you had Alexis J. That report concluded, and this is Rotherham, the area that you were investigating. And about 1,400 children were abused by gangs of pedophiles. This is Rotherham. Now, how did you get into the investigation? So let's get into what you did and take us through the case studies that you followed and what was the impact of your investigation?
Well, I would say this problem has never been held and isolated to a few towns. I mean, you mentioned Rotherham and Telford there. It's always been much bigger than that. I mean, a report released last year found that 1,000 girls in Telford had been abused from the 1980s. Telford is a small, new town on the border with Wales, in leafy Shropshire. If any of your viewers know England well, then if they do know Telford, it is not a place where 1,000 girls being abused would be considered even slightly proportional to the general population. It is a small, gentle new town. So that was 1,000. In Rochdale, there was a huge gang scandal. We still don't know the precise figures there. But as part of the investigation, we, myself and my producer, we looked across the country at kind of court reports and prosecutions. And we found 47 different towns and cities where these gangs have operated. 47.
47.
And only 2 of them have official investigations, Telford and Rotherham. There's nothing in Bradford. There's no major deep dive into what happened in Newcastle. Oxford, we do not know even close to the extent of the problem there. In Banbury, a small town near Oxford, I mean, the statistics are abominable and we still don't know. So the motivation of my investigation was to refocus political attention where it was always missing. We didn't really ever focus on this problem properly, but also to restart a national conversation more generally about these crimes, because as I mentioned before, people have always avoided giving them the sufficient criticism that they needed and that they deserved. There was, I think, a mealy-mouthed, pathetic and very embarrassing way of talking about this problem when it first became public knowledge. You know, when the lid blew off the scandal in 2012 and 2013, even after the J report that you mentioned, when we had 1,400 girls abused. In fact, that figure has now been revised up to 1,510.
Wow.
You know, even with those ginormous numbers and some of the stories in that report, and you know, I advise any of your viewers, if they want to read that report, do so carefully, because it does not make for happy reading in the slightest. You know, it's not just child abuse, it's torture, you know, murder. Some of the most kind of unbelievably harrowing and blood-curdling stories. These things were just ignored and pushed away, I think predominantly due to cultural sensitivity. So that was the motivation of my investigation, to restart the national conversation, but also to inquire whether or not it is still going on today. And I'm very sad to say that it is, and that is very much what we found. Going around the country, visiting survivors, speaking to campaigners and whistleblowers. They exposed a scandal that did not end in 2014. And if anything, in some places, the abuse is getting worse. The sophistication of modern technology now means that you can exploit a child in more nefarious and even more egregious ways through various mobile apps and through tracking devices and all the rest of it. You know, the tools for an abuser have increased at the same time as our culture has become way more sensitive about discussing these issues when they lie on kind of ethnic or religious lines. So in many ways, the response since the scandal blew up has been perfect for abusers. I think the state, the media, and many politicians have, through their negligence and their active failure to discuss and deal with this problem, have been the abuser's #1 ally. They have failed to discuss sufficiently or criticize the racial and or religious hatred that inspired these attacks. And they have also failed to properly resource and deal with those abusers in the various arms of the state. And so I'm very happy for the first time since I started this investigation was that last week we started to see some actual action taking place. So it's a start. I mean, a lot of the whistleblowers I spoke to, the campaigners and survivors I've met with over the course of the investigation were cautiously optimistic about this announcement. But I'm possibly more optimistic than them because these recommendations have been directly lifted from my work. I mean, my film, in the closing monologue, I call for a national crime agency investigations, ethnicity data, the police being held to account, and all of these things are now being introduced by the government. So, I mean, as a campaigning investigative journalist, I couldn't be happier. We now just wait to see if those words are being delivered.
Well, the attitude of the government right now, despite the pressure being mounted on them, is that we're going to step beyond political correctness in terms of safeguarding girls in British society. But do you think they will remain steadfast? Will they stay this path, this course?
No, I'm not disheartened at all, because I feel enormously confident about the moral backbone that the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary have displayed. I mean, I am happy to be complimentary about them, because I think they have gone where no ministers have gone before in their honesty and directness. The only politicians who I think have spoken so clearly about this problem were Sarah Champion and Jack Straw, Labour politicians, who were both punished by their own party when they spoke about it. They faced enormous opprobrium and censure from the Labour Party when they spoke out. And now finally we have a bunch of Conservatives who are willing to speak about it. If there is cause for concern, it is that not many MPs have supported their government in this announcement. There are a few. Since 2019, a lot of Conservatives now have seats in many of the areas where these gangs operated, such as Bradford, across the so-called Red Wall of South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, places where Conservatives never were before. So there are now more politically on-side voices in that space, which helps. But I think, it's 9 days, no, it's 10 days since the announcement today.
Yes.
And we are now in, 10 days in the news cycle, and people are still flapping relentlessly against the announcement, desperately trying to beat down against what the Home Secretary said. I mean, open letters from Pakistani groups demanding that she apologise, which I think is a remarkable thing to do. Instead of the outward and open criticism for gangs within their community, they'd rather attack the Home Secretary for outlining them. I think that's remarkable and actually points to some of the problems that we're having.
Right.
Baroness Saeeda Wazi, who was appointed by David Cameron, very senior Conservative, she's attacked the Home Secretary as well, demanding that she apologise for so-called racist
that will happen. That will happen, Charlie. I just quickly want to
understand.
understand from you, how do you see justice happening? What's your point of view?
But there have been hundreds of convictions across the country. So we know there are thousands of survivors based on official reports. And in my film, I said the real number is likely in the tens of thousands in terms of survivors. And I stand by that. But unfortunately, these gangs operate in such a way that, it could be 20 men abusing one girl. So we just don't know the number of abusers yet. So one of the reasons why this investigation is so vital and why this government action is so welcome is because so many abusers and victims will have slipped through the cracks, right?
Yeah.
Would have escaped being captured by the state and being kind of introduced to the social services that they need. Now, with hundreds of convictions, my hope is that now there is a renewed effort to investigate historically the areas where many of these crimes have been reported. So the task force is being supported by the National Crime Agency. This is the new announcement by the government. Now the NCA, which is sort of, for your viewers, that's sort of like Britain's FBI, right? That's our kind of national police force who do kind of specialist investigations. In Rotherham, the reason why the number was revised from 1,400 to 1,500 was because the NCA came in and did a historical investigation called Operation Stovewood.
Right.
Now it's my hope that some Stovewood-style investigations are launched by Britain's FBI across the country in these places where they are needed. The NCA can make a big difference with specialist officers. They'll need more funding, they'll need more work, but if there's one area of government that should get a lot of money, it's the protection of young girls and women, and also boys. Boys have been involved in this abuse as well, and often they're not mentioned. So yeah, that's my hope. And there's also a nascent form of hope in the form of civil courts, so not the criminal system anymore. I reported exclusively a couple of weeks ago about one of the survivors I work with, a woman called Liz.
Yes.
She took her abuser to court after he was released from prison, after only serving 3.5 years in prison, and she sued him for the abuse that she suffered, and she was awarded damages of £425,000, which is a significant amount. Now, I think that a lot of the many survivors who endured horrific crimes at the hands of these hundreds of known convicted abusers will launch their own civil cases inspired by Liz as a sort of icebreaker of a groundbreaking legal case.
Right.
So even if the state doesn't do enough, survivors can now take matters into their own hands and get their own justice, which is great. So there's cause for optimism all round.
Absolutely, Charlie. And I second you on that there is cause for optimism. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and let's hope that the government carries on this path, and you also muscle on in your campaign to protect British society and expose these anomalies and these convicts and these criminals. Thank you so much for speaking with us. With that, we call it a wrap on this edition of The Right Stand. Brass Tacks with Zaka now.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The BJP's first list of 189 candidates in Karnataka has caused quite a stir. First, some of the senior leaders like Jagdish Shettar and Lakshman Shavdi have created a ruckus saying that they cannot be omitted because they are senior leaders of the party. There's also criticism from the Congress and JDS that the sons of many BJP leaders have been accommodated. So isn't this an example of dynastic politics? But the question to the Congress is also that they have released in total between 3 lists less number of candidates than the BJP has. So what are they waiting for? Are they also playing the waiting game here? But the biggest charge is that of the 189 candidates released by the BJP, only 9 sitting MLAs have been dropped. So is the BJP playing it safe?
Now we are going to announce 189 candidates for forthcoming assembly election of Karnataka.
BJP's long-delayed first list of candidates for the Karnataka elections has opened a Pandora's box. There were protests, there were tears, there was rebellion. Take Lakshman Shavdi, a former Deputy Chief Minister, loyalist of B.S. Yedurappa and one of the most powerful Lingayat leaders in the state. He is now threatening to quit the BJP after being dropped as a candidate.
Many are asking me to resign as party member and follow what the people of my constituency are saying. Their first demand is to resign from party membership and also as Vidhan Parishad member.
Former Chief Minister Jagdish Shettar, who was among those missing from the first list, landed up in Delhi to plead with the BJP leadership. And he may end up getting his way after threatening to contest one way or the other.
I met National President JP Naddaji and I explained everything about my constituency and I expressed that I am going to contest being as a senior leader and ex-chief minister. I expressed my view that I am going to contest election.
In the first list released by the BJP for 189 seats, some sitting MLAs have been dropped, many turncoats have been given tickets, and 52 new faces have made the cut.
ऐसा डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम कांग्रेस के अंदर है ही नहीं. हम डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम के वजह से तय किया है. उसके वजह से देरी कल से शुरू होता है. नॉमिनेशन रखने का समय कल से शुरू होता है. उसके वजह से देरी ऐसा मुझे नहीं मानता हूँ.
Heavyweights R. Ashok and V. Somanna have been fielded to take on DK Shivakumar and Siddaramaiah. But they have also been given tickets from second seats.
ಕನಕಪುರದಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪರ್ಧೆ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಟಾಸ್ಕ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮಾನ್ಯ ಅಮಿತ್ ಶಾ ಅವರು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇದೇನು ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ನನಗೇನು ಕೇಳಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ನಾನೊಬ್ಬ ಪಕ್ಷದ ಶಿಸ್ತಿನ ಸಿಪಾಯಿಯಾಗಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತದೆ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
Meanwhile, the opposition tried to fish in troubled waters.
I wish BJP leaders and their candidates good luck. It is their political call. We have faith in the people of Karnataka.
While the BJP has relied heavily on the caste card, can it douse the fire sparked from the first list?
Now, Karnataka is already considered to be a bit of a tough battle for the BJP, and now the seat distribution has created a fresh headache for the party. After missing out on a ticket, Jagdish Shettar has expressed his disappointment and he said that he will contest at any cost. There are indications he will also be placated as his seat has not been announced yet. Hubballi Central This evening, he met with BJP President JP Nadda in Delhi and he said that he conveyed to him that he intends to contest. BJP MLC R. Shankar has threatened to quit the party and vowed to fight as an independent. Former Deputy Chief Minister Lakshman Sawadi too has announced that he will quit the BJP if he's not given a ticket and denied a ticket from Jayanagar in Bengaluru. Over 1,200 supporters of BJP's N.R. Ramesh quit the party, asserting that he will stand as an independent. The Minister for Fisheries S. Angara, who is a 6-time MLA from Sulia Reserve constituency, has announced his political retirement. He also says that he will not campaign for the BJP. So let's break down where the big contests are slated to be on the 10th of May. In Varuna, it will be Congress heavyweight and Chief Ministerial hopeful Siddaramaiah versus BJP's V. Somanna, who is a minister. He belongs to the powerful Lingayat community. In Kanakapura, it's going to be the battle of the Vokkaligas, State Congress President D.K. Shivkumar versus sitting Minister R. Ashoka. And in Channapatna, it's going to be the JDS's H.D. Kumaraswamy taking on the BJP's C.P. Yogeshwar. But overall, if you read between the lines, the BJP has largely played it safe in the first list. The party has not made any big changes in its strongholds. It's repeated most of the MLAs in North Central, the Bengaluru city, as well as parts of coastal Karnataka. Tickets have been denied only to 9